Darling, I don't know what you are going through in your life right now, but I promise you this is the video that you need and it will change your life. I'm going to help you discover something that I discovered many years ago, and it has revolutionized. It has changed my life. It is the secret to my life. It is the secret to how I create my life, how I show up in this world as a beacon of light, how I have so much joy, so much depth. It all comes from this one place, and it's not because I'm special or anything like that. It's one thing that I have that you also have too. Chances are you're just not using it. This is a bit of a night shoot. I always film in the daytime, but I'm going to tell you the truth. It was so beautiful here in the south of France that I had to spend my day in the sun. And if you follow me on Instagram, which you should because I share my whole life there, I don't have just a professional page and a personal, it's everything on that page. You'll see what I'm talking about. It was so damn beautiful today. So that's why we're filming at night. And so here's the thing. This is my heart for you. It's really comforting when we have clarity. In fact, when we're going through life and it's a fog and it's blurry and it's confusing and it's frustrating and we can't ever seem to get ahead in our relationships and with our finances and our career, with our living situation, with our family members, when we feel like we're in that hamster wheel, we're in that rut, it is one of the most debilitating things that we can go through. And I'm going to share something with you that is going to be life-changing. Really quick, before I go into this, I would ask that you would subscribe right now. And listen, you're going to want to share this video with a friend. And I would ask, would you do me a favor? Would you share my work with the people that you know? It would mean the world to me. And if you're at a place where you're like, Arica, I really could use someone like you in my life, guiding me, supporting me, championing me, then there are two ways that you can work with me now. I've just released a new Spiritual Alpha program. Now, I've been talking a little bit about this one. This is a year-long mentorship with me. But I got some feedback from some people, and they just weren't ready to make that kind of investment in themselves. Some people can, some people cannot. And so what I did was I created something that anyone could do, which is a monthly kind of portal that you can come, an incubator that you can come and sit with me every month in a group format, and you'll get to talk with me in a Q&A. It's going to be live. I've even put some meditations in there. It's going to change your life. So you want to join that. It's my Spiritual Alpha mini classes. I highly encourage you. This will revolutionize your life. If you want to go deeper, you want to go faster, then I encourage you to join my Spiritual Alpha mini classes. Or if you're like, Arica, I need some deep mentorship, you can do my Spiritual Alpha year-long mentorship. The quickest way that you and I can get clarity in our lives is when we look through the eyes of the heart. And most of us are not looking at life through the lens of the heart. In fact, most of us are governed by our mind, our logic, what everyone else is telling us we need to accomplish, what we need to do. And what happens is when we follow the crowd, we get stifled, we get stopped, we lose our voice, we lose momentum, we lose direction, we get frustrated, we get confused. One of the quickest ways that you can start looking at life through the eyes of the heart so that you can live life with clarity, so that you can have peace, so that you can feel alive and not just like you're just pushing through, that it's just not one obstacle after the next, but you can actually feel like you're thriving, is when you live life and you look at life through the eyes of the heart. And the quickest way to start doing that is by exposing yourself to beauty, such as what I did today when I did my walk here in the south of France. You know, it's changing the lens, it's changing the intention of going, where can I see beauty everywhere I go? You know, even I sometimes lose sight of this. I had some friends who came and saw me in the south of France, and they're like, Do you know how lucky you are? And honestly, I couldn't even see it because I was going through so many private things in my own life that were really hard, some hardships, that I couldn't see how lucky and how blessed I am. And the reality is we all go through this. If you're going through this, you're not alone. And I don't want you to judge yourself for it, but I do want you to be keenly aware that when you start looking at life through the eyes of the heart, that there is an intention to always look for beauty. And why? Why are we looking for beauty? Because beauty restores our heart. It gives us a fresh perspective. I can be inside my home all day, frustrated about things not working out. But the minute that I step outside, the minute I see the sun, the minute I see the trees, the minute I hear children laughing, or I see very cute dogs walking by, all of this is the beauty of life. And it is what our hearts are longing for. But what we choose to do is, because we know the fog, we know the frustration, we know the lack of clarity, that becomes our comfort zone. And so we end up hanging out in the mud far longer than we need to. But if we would start coming back to our hearts and going, I choose to live through the lens of my heart. I'm going to set my heart to intentionally look for beauty, because when I look for beauty, that is the window washer to my soul. That is the window washer to my heart, so that I can see life with a fresh lens, with a fresh perspective, that I can have hope come into my heart and be invigorated, that life can thrust upon me again, and I can breathe and realize that there are possibilities, that there's hope, that there are solutions to be had, that there is a life worth living that is full of joy, that's filled with vitality, with community, with relationships, with love, with pleasure. All of this is available, but we don't even realize what's around us when we close off our hearts, when we choose to live life through the mind. One of my favorite movies, and if you're a guy and you're hearing this, maybe this one's not for you, but the story that I'll tell afterwards might be for you. But one of my favorite movies at the time was Titanic. And I think about Rose and how she was living her life and her heart was so dead, to the point where she was ready to jump off the ship because she was engaged to a man that she frankly just despised. And how often are we living our lives that way, where we're living a life that we despise? We despise our job. We despise the car that we drive. We despise our boss. Sometimes we despise our family. If you're in a relationship, sometimes you despise your partner. If you're single, you despise your loneliness. You despise the opposite sex. And when we're not living life through the heart, it's very easy to slip into that slumber of despising everything that is around you. And just like Rose, she completely despised the guy that she was married to. But for the sake of surviving, because back in those days, women weren't making their own income, she had to marry into this wealth, and her mother was really pushing her. But then she meets Jack, this poor guy who doesn't even own a home. And what does Jack teach Rose? Jack teaches Rose that life can be lived through a different way, through the heart, that there is adventure to be had, that there are rules to be broken, that there is love to be made, that there are nude portraits to be drawn, that there is spitting to be had, that there's dancing to be done on copious amounts of cheap beer, that there is a way to experience the sea if you'll just go to the edge, to the tip of the boat, and open up yourself and let the wind, let the waves rush all over you. You see, that awakened her. He awakened her heart. He awakened her to a different life. And guess what? All of that was around her, but she didn't have eyes to see it because she was living through eyes of survival, the eyes of the mind, the eyes of the society that says, you need to marry into wealth, the eyes of her mother that said, you need to forfeit your happiness so that I can live my regal lifestyle. You see, when we start letting other people's opinions dictate our lives, and we allow society to govern what should make us happy, all these rules and expectations, what we do is we stop we circumvent our heart. We stop living from the heart, and then we go right back to the mind. We start living life through the mind. And when we do this, this is when life stops working. This is when the lack of clarity, the frustration, the hopelessness, the depression, the despondency, the anger, the frustration, all of that kicks in, because the reality is you have no business hanging out there. Life is meant to be lived from the heart. And most of us aren't doing that. And this is why we have so much addiction to everything, from pills to alcohol to sex, OnlyFans, social media, you name it, because we have been taught that the heart is not safe. I'm going to get right back into another story. For my men out there who are watching this, what about William Wallace? William Wallace inspired the men to wake up their hearts. They were comfortable. They knew that there was a war going on. They knew that there was the potential that their lives could be lost. But they were clinging on to comfort more than anything. They were clinging on to the comforts of their beds, the breast of their women, the fields that they had, hoping, praying that the war would not come. But William Wallace woke up their hearts and said, the battle is coming. And he reminded them that there was a pride to be had, that there were women to be fought for, that if they were going to continue occupying their land, that they must go out and indeed fight the battle, not run from the battle, not hide from the battle, not pretend that the battle was there. You see, William Wallace opened these men's hearts, the eyes of their heart, where complacency had set in, where comfort had set in. William Wallace came in and inspired and invigorated their hearts. And you might be a slave to your comforts. You might be a slave to complacency. There may be areas in your life where the writing is on the wall, that things are about to fall apart. I can't tell you how many men that I've worked with in the past whose marriages were falling apart, but they were just hoping that the problem would go away, and then they got slapped with a huge divorce, papers. And so we all do this. Or the woman who stays in the relationship with the man for far too long when he's not loving her, when he's emotionally unavailable, but she hopes that one day he will change, instead of realizing that she is the agent of change in her life. You see, we need sometimes that hero to come and inspire us, which I hope my work is doing for you, to inspire us to realize that life is meant to be lived from the heart, that the slumber and the sleepiness of our mind is what leads us to a blind catastrophe, where we lead ourselves into a blind death because we choose not to see through the eyes of the heart. It's the same reason why we miss out on seeing each other. Let's bring this into today in practical terms, why we miss out on each other. You think about a man who is trying to pursue a woman, or who has a woman. And this is ultimately the most important thing to all of us, whether we realize it or not. We all want to be loved. We want to be in a loving relationship. But when a man's looking for a woman, he has to realize that her heart is like the ocean. It's wild. It's disruptive. It cannot be contained. But instead, you hear so many men saying, I just want a woman who brings peace to my life. I just don't want drama. I just don't want this. And the reality is, this is just a man who's so tired and beat up by life that he actually doesn't know what he wants. That if a woman just brought him peace, he would be bored out of his mind. But instead, he has lost his courage. He has lost his sense of valor. He has lost his warrior spirit, that alpha spirit that's on the inside of him. So instead of embracing the ocean, which is her heart, he's looking for a caged bird that sits there quiet and sits there pretty, thinking that that is going to awaken his heart, that is going to inspire him to live a life that's worth meaning, that's a life worth value. No, in order to live that life, you need the ocean to wake you up, to blow the salt in your face, and to waken you, to moisten your eyes, to go, life is worth living. Or with women who they just want a man that never rocks the boat, that makes her feel safe all the time, that just says yes dear and all that, What she doesn't realize is that the heart of a man is a wild beast that sometimes comes and breaks things up, that sometimes can love her and flip her around and bring out that wild side to him that she is craving, that she actually deeply wants. She's not looking for a yes man. She's looking for a man that challenges her, that awakens her, that inspires her, that leads her. But instead, women get so conditioned into taming the beast out of men, which is what you see going rapid all in our society. Men wearing dresses and men looking like women and acting like women, but they're not the men that are out there leading women in the battle of life. They're not the hero that she can aspire to. They're not the warrior that she secretly dreams of at night when she's in the comfort of her bed touching herself. You see, we become so unaccustomed to listening to our hearts. Why? Because we want safety. Because somewhere in our story, we've been taught that the heart cannot be trusted. But you see, it's the heart that is the wellspring of life. If you want to drink the goodness, if you want to drink the vitality, the life of life, it comes from the heart. But when our hearts have been disappointed, when they've been stepped on, when they've been belittled, when they've been betrayed, we then tell ourselves the heart is not a safe place. It's not a reliable place. It's not something that is dependable. And so we forfeit, we adulterate our hearts, we betray our hearts to live lives from the mind, but we don't understand why we're not satisfied, why we're not living life that is worth living, that is meaningful, that is fulfilling, that causes us to wake up with that vitality in our hearts, that joy, that deep meaning that we're seeking. Instead, we choose duty, what people expect out of us, what society expects out of us, wondering why we're carrying sand, why we no longer can carry the gold, the diamonds, the jewels of life, and instead all that we have is just sand that runs through our fingers. Because when we choose duty, when we choose logic, when we choose expectations, when we compare ourselves to everybody else, what we do is we forsake our hearts and we stop living. And when we stop living, we're slowly dying. So I want to ask you, my darling, when is the last time that you've listened to your heart? When is the last time that you've checked in with your heart? When is the last time that you've placed value on your heart? And I want to ask you this. May I beg the question out of you of, if you're not living from your heart, the life that you have produced out of logic and out of duty and out of compliance to the everyday norm, are you satisfied with that life? And if you're watching this and you're like, Arica, no, I highly encourage you, become a part of that spiritual alpha. Even if you're just doing the monthly mini classes, it's $24 a month, or you can pay for the whole thing, and I have special offers if you do that. But I know that this sort of concept is revolutionary, and the practice to be able to apply this to your life does not come natural. It's not comfortable. You're gonna need that accountability. You're gonna need support. You're gonna need a sense of community if you're truly going to start awakening to this new way of living. But my darling, I want to encourage you that the life that you're living, that there is more. There is more available to you if you will choose to begin to open yourself up to a new perspective. If you will begin to open the eyes of your understanding by intentionally seeking for beauty every single day, because as I said earlier in the beginning of this video, that beauty is like the window washer to the soul, that all of that fog, all of that dust, all of the mugginess that's just stuck to your heart because you've been so disappointed, that when you expose yourself to beauty, that it begins to wash the window of your heart so that you can begin to see clearly now. This is how you get clarity in your life, is looking through the eyes of the heart. It might be different, it might be foreign, but it will change your life. Listen, I want to know in the comment section, I know this is a very long video, but I want to know what part of this spoke to you. Let me know. Listen, darling, I love you so much. You're meant for more. You're worth pursuing this. You're loved and you're valued. Come to me if you need some support, and keep coming back to these videos because they will change your life if you'll keep coming back. I'll see you soon. Take care.